I'm Bob Rosato. I'm a staff photographer at Sports Illustrated magazine. I've been a professional sports photographer for 27 years, and I shot for the National Football League Creative Services Division for the first 14 years of my career. I thought we'd talk today a little bit about football photography for those of you that are new to shooting football for your high schools or for your local teams. I thought perhaps I could give you some ideas on what I like to do and things that help me become a better football photographer. One of the things that is really, really important when it comes to shooting football is to prepare accordingly. I always kind of know who's in the game at any moment of the game. I know who's going to play that day. If they're not going to play that day, I think all those things are important. I think preparing equipment, I think preparing yourself for bad weather, all those things play an element in making better pictures when it comes to shooting football. Obviously, the key to shooting football is to be able to anticipate action. If you don't understand the game, the best thing that you can do is to understand what your team does, what players like to do in certain situations in certain places on the football field. I think that's critical. The lenses and the things that you will select to use to make those pictures will also come as a result of where they're at on the field, and as you learn your technique, you'll be able to make better pictures accordingly. What I like to do is position myself in places where it's going to give me the most optimum chance to make the best pictures possible. If I can get into a place where I think the play is going to go, or a place where I can make the most of the opportunity that I have to make a great action picture, then that's what I'm going to do. One of the places that I like to do is get into the corner of the end zone, somewhere between the goal line and the end line on the sideline, because so many plays go to that corner, and I've made so many covers and so many big pictures from being in that position in college football games or National Football League games, that the same things happen in high school games that happen in those games as well. You make the picture of a guy making a touchdown, then you don't want to forget that the action on the sidelines or the reaction of the players is so vitally important, especially with today's digital cameras, because what happens is it's everyone's tendency to look at the camera to see what picture they got. And I always advise against doing that, at least until you know that the players are leaving the field and it's clearly over. If you don't do that, you're going to miss a great picture. So it's always good to keep your eyes moving no matter what you do, all the time. Always look around. And that includes the stands, the sidelines, the coaches, players, the opposing team, reaction, all those things count. The other thing to do is to make sure that you shoot the periphery of the game. Not necessarily what's also going on in the field, but your cheerleaders, potentially all the things that happen, the pageantry of the game, homecoming, everything, the homecoming court, all those things that go on. It's just like a college football game. There's a lot of pageantry in high school football, and you want to record that as an event. And I would do that every single game that you go to photograph, whether it's an away game or a home game. If it's a home game, there's going to be more pageantry involved with your home team. Player huddles when they take the field, all those things. Look for something different every time you go out, and you're going to make a lot better picture. Another cool thing you can do is maybe go and get permission from your high school coach. Talk to him beforehand, meet with them, ask about going into the locker room before a game. You'll get things that you never thought you could get. When players prepare for a game at that level, some of them go through rituals, some of them go through different things that make them more intense when they hit the football field. And you can get in there and make some of those pictures. You will create some of the most exciting pictures you can possibly imagine. And it's probably better to do that at a home game than necessarily at an away game, but it's something that you can do. And the other thing you can ask permission for is to maybe go into their team huddle right before they take the field. And you can get in there and make some really interesting pictures with a wide-angle lens that will give you some of the most interesting pictures you can possibly make at a game that's not action. One of the things that's really, really important to do is to watch your backgrounds. It's sometimes hard to do when you shoot and react to sports action, but you can do this primarily if you look through the frame all the way from the foreground to the background and make sure you don't have funny things growing out of people's heads, or cars parked in the background, or anything that might show up in a high school stadium, particularly in a day game where everything is lit pretty evenly. The other thing to do, and this is something that is a very, very common mistake, is when they go and do sideline portraits, you have, team managers or maybe a chain link fence or something in the background. You've got to be very, very careful not to have those things growing out of a head or growing out of the top of a head or distracting the background. So make really, really careful that you watch your backgrounds all the way through the frame when you're shooting any kind of feature picture that where you want to focus in on a player's face. Now, in terms of anticipating action, what I try to do is if I think that they're going to pass and I want to get an exchange between a defensive back and a receiver, I want to be downfield a little bit because I know the ball is going to come to me, and therefore I can kind of anticipate what lens to pick up in what situation. And if I know it's going to go to a certain player, then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually pick up the player when he comes off the line of scrimmage. And therefore, I know exactly when I can fire the camera and make the best picture possible. A lot of times when you shoot outdoor sports, you're going to encounter inclement weather. It's inevitable. It always happens. It's happened to me throughout my whole career, from blizzards to deluges. And when it rains, it's not good for equipment and it's not good for you. So the first thing you need to do is to prepare for that in the event that that happens. And you need to protect yourself, so make sure you bring good rain gear to make sure that you're protected, because if you get distracted, it's very hard to make pictures when you're distracted. The other thing to do is to get some coverings for the cameras. And depending on what you use, I use professional covers for mine because the equipment is very expensive, as you can imagine. But if you don't have the big lenses that we have and you don't have that, you certainly should bring towels or plastic bags or something to cover the equipment to give you the maximum chance to make pictures in bad weather. But something else to think about. Don't forget that the bad weather can sometimes you make some of the greatest pictures. You look for the mud, look for feet, look for things splashing, all those things. They make great pictures. When you go out and you start shooting and you find that you're going to make mistakes, don't worry about it, because that's the time that you're going to learn. When you go back and you look at your pictures, the learning curve is when you make mistakes, and you go back the next time, you're going to do a better job, and you'll find out what you did wrong, and you'll correct it. That's the key. One other thing, study the pictures of the professionals. They're in every sports magazine, they're on the internet, and there's a lot of resources out there that weren't available to me when I was a young photographer coming up. So I think if you go out there and you study some of the pictures, and I mean really look at them and look all the way through the frame, it'll help you make better pictures. Good luck.